We're a group of Gen Xers who became aware of our neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we share stories, interesting topics, and talk to special guests. Welcome to Season 2 of This Is How My Brain Works. Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Is How My Brain Works. We are Krista, Gano, Jason Rudofsky. I am Michael Collins. Our fourth co-host, Sarah Hines, is out on assignment. We today are going to talk about the topic of dysregulation, what that means in the mind, what that means in the body, and what that means as someone who is neurospicy. So when I think of dysregulation, when I first started learning about it, it is just like when I get from an ADHD perspective, when I get flooded, when I get overwhelmed, and what that feels like in my body, and then how that shifts my energy into a negative place, like getting irritated, getting defensive, getting passive aggressive, things like that.
So label it, Michael. So what does it feel like in your body? Like for me, it starts to feel like an elephant is sitting on my chest. That's one of my feels. Like, so instead of like, I just feel it in my body. Like, what is the thing?
It's for like the flooding. It's like the blood rushing to your head, almost like the head, like there's an overwhelm going on in the head where it's like, you know, like I can't contain everything. It's like the emotions are too big for my body to kind of hold it all in. So it's like this kind of energy wants to kind of go out, and there's a rise. There's definitely like a rise in the chest. There's like I'd say like body temperature even goes up.
My hot flashes flare when I'm getting dysregulated.
Yeah, body temperature shifts for sure. Yeah, like if it was like a flash, clammy, sweaty, and it's like distressing, you feel like you don't have full control. You feel like things are just and it's really like, it's typically like, would you say like an external locus of control where it's like something is happening to you and you're having a hard time dealing with it?
I'll give you a perfect example. If you've ever gone boogie boarding, if you've ever been on a surfboard, you've been behind a wave, the wave crashes over the top of you, and you're underneath it spinning. You don't know where you are, completely disoriented. You don't know when you're going to be able to come up. There's claustrophobia involved for me in that. And now the ocean I didn't grow up near the ocean. So I don't know the ocean. Like a lot of people like, oh, you wouldn't want to live by the ocean. It's a forceful, scary place. It's beautiful, but to get in the ocean and to feel that, for me, that's what it feels like. It feels like the wave of water is adrenaline, and the adrenaline engulfs me, my entire body. I have a hard time breathing, almost hyperventilating. And that lasts for 10 to 20 seconds, it feels like. It feels like an eternity. And I'm talking like crisis situation, like I freeze in a crisis. If there's a crisis, I don't know what to do until my brain, like everything rushes to my brain, and it's like, I don't know what to do first. And
so all when you're in fight, flight, freeze, right? That's the sympathetic.
Completely.
You go to sympathetic, limbic, the amygdala, the reptile brain. So you're in fight, flight, freeze.
Or fawn. They came up with fawn.
Right. Okay.
I'm not good in crisis. I'm bad in a crisis. Lisa and I had this conversation.
When you get into sympathetic, you're not able to think rationally. You know, you're
No, it's your lizard brain, not your wizard brain. That's what we used to say. It's your lizard brain, not your wizard brain. No, but I think that because I love that yours only lasts for 20 seconds. I feel like mine
Well, I
is a
mean,
slow burn. I feel like I got a slow burn going on. But um, but it's interesting because I just had this happen where I was having technical difficulties at a job site, and I don't know if this happens to everyone or if it happens to me because I'm a woman or whatever, but there's generally men who want to like help. And I say that nastily because I don't mean that. And I'm just like, it's a nice thing. But the women know better. Like the women are like, they stay away from me. In fact, I had a wonderful woman who she became my bouncer. She was like, no one talks to Krista right now. But there was a big thing on a job site that was happening. It was a technical thing. And I had this rush of men want to come help, like like really close to me. Can I help? And I finally had to look up and go, I need everybody to leave the room and get away from me right this second. And someone went to touch me. I said, if you touch me, you're going to lose your hand. I need you out. And I wasn't like free. I didn't scream it. But I was very like, I hit a point where if the next person who touched me, I may have wheeled around and hit them. And it felt, and it's so weird to be enculturated. And I will say this as a woman, but I don't think it's just a gender thing. It's just it's the only body I'm in. To be enculturated that you have to be nice and accept help all the time. Like as women, we are enculturated that you're like, oh, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, let me give me that. When I'm in that space, I really need to problem solve on my own. And I have no problem asking for help once I know what that is. But it's like what you said, Jason. It's like I've got to like organize my thoughts and it's sort of like a computer. You know how when you've got a computer going bad or going wrong and people just want to hit buttons, and then once you realize that the computer actually has to go through all of those buttons you've hit before it can do anything. That's how my brain is. If you keep giving me input
right.
when I'm trying to just take a breath and organize my brain, I can't organize. And so I have to almost get rid of all input until I can take a moment. And then I'll ask for help. But it
That's
is
a
such
very
an interesting
similar
thing.
experience. Yeah, if I'm in an overwhelmed mode and there's a lot of people wanting, what can I do? What can I do? It's a tricky space because people want to feel helpful. They want to feel purposeful. And if you deny them that, then they have that experience. But to your point, Krista, if um I'll say like a lot of times I'm building the plane while I'm flying it, so I don't know what to delegate to you. Or I don't know the steps yet to be able to I need to figure this out first. And then that seems like, well, uh he just doesn't want anybody's help. It's like I it's not like that I don't want anybody's help. It's like how you were saying, Crystal, like these inputs. For me, I'm trying to distill down into a solution. And if you keep offering things, I have to go through every one of those things and
Yeah.
refute it or deal with it or tell why that won't work. And that's adding to this thing instead of distilling down into like here's the solution. Okay, everybody back in. Here's the plan. Here's how you can help, but this is what we're doing.
So yeah, so how do you in a world where it seems like the moment it's like this world hates the idea of distress. Of anything being
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
Yes.
This world hates this
Yes.
modern world hates the idea of anything being uncomfortable, which is such a bummer in some ways because yes, being uncomfortable sucks, but it's where we grow and learn and find new ideas. And I think those of us with ADHD and neurodivergence, we're uncomfortable all the effing time.
We're always in a struggle. Yeah.
Yes. So it doesn't bother us. So we're just like, can you just like take your
but you know, those struggles
well-meaning thing and
sometimes,
go sit down for a minute?
sometimes I feel like those struggles we put upon ourselves, you know, the funny thing about not asking for help, there have been many projects I've done, like building this shed that I got, right? Or building this pergola. And in the directions, it says, it has 3 human bodies next to each other. Like, you need 3 people for this. You know, you need like, don't
Maybe for
forget, you'll
you,
need a second person to help you with the and I'm like,
whatever,
whatever. You
whatever.
know, and I have never, I think once I've used someone to, I think I used my son just to help me lift one piece, just one piece. My point is, I put that on myself, right? I could easily, I mean, I bypassed all the help that they said they were going to give me. Like, make sure you have 2 extra people to help you put the roof on the thing. And then consequently, during the process, like you're saying, Mike, you're building the plane as you're flying it. I'm doing the same and building all these things, but thinking that I can take care of it myself. You know, I've done it before. But in every situation, there is a point where I get really frustrated with the project, really frustrated. And I could have made it a lot easier on myself if I had read the directions properly and employed a couple people to help me at that spot instead of trying to do it myself, becoming frustrated, dropping things, you know, falling off the ladder, and then it sort of compounds itself and I get more and more frustrated. I actually could avoid a lot of these situations, but we I don't ask for help when I should.
Well, I
I
think
agree. There's a balance. I agree. I don't always ask for help when I should. And I agree that that I think if you asked people around me, they would say it's hard to help me. And interestingly enough, I don't think people say that it's hard to collaborate with me. I think it's hard to help me. So it's not in spaces of collaboration. It is definitely in these spaces where I become to get flooded, that I am not an easy person to help.
yeah, I would resemble that for sure.
Well, and you know what? I'll go back to the golf course. I'm in a situation where I'm working on something by myself. And all of a sudden, someone comes over to me and he's like, oh, so and so told me to help you. That I didn't have anything else to do. And they just told me to come over and help you. Well, I'm not great at like having someone come in the middle of a situation that I've already sort of planned out. You know how it is. It's
And you
not
don't want their
easy.
ideas at that point.
And then I'm like, I don't, you know, I wanted to do that. And that's my thing. And I don't really like the way he does it. And it kind of becomes a little frustrating. Um, but then I was able to put him in a situation sort of away from me. And the truth is, at the very end, he did a great job. He did a great job. Um, but it was put on me sort of, uh, it was just kind of thrown on me when I sort of had my plan. And Michael, we talk about this a lot. It takes so long for us to create the right plan, the right directions we want to go. You know, should I go A to B or A to C first? Because if I go A to C, then D is a lot easier to get to. And then once we've made that path, if someone comes in and is like, why didn't you go to B? You should have gone to B first. Because, you know, then it's like we start second guessing ourselves. We're like,
Well, and then it also takes a lot of effort to recalibrate. Like,
oh,
because you've gone down the road in your head as far as what that plan is. It's hard for us to
Mhm.
plan. It taxes the frontal cortex, right? So we've gone through that effort, and now someone says we're switching track, or now this is the plan. Now we have to kind of go through that mental work of recalibrating it, which is not easy. And if there's pressure around us, it makes it even harder to get there. Um,
exactly.
and yeah, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, so what are, because I am noticing, I think that, listen, you guys, I've said it 500 times and it's not going to stop in season 2, that I think so many more people in our world are neurodivergent than are not. And we've just not been properly, talking about it or diagnosing. I think, I mean, we see dysregulation out in the world all the time. And so what is interesting is before I was able to give it a label, there were times that stuff would happen and I would just be like, well, I guess just that was their fault, or that, it was a lot of like pointing finger, not really taking ownership and understanding that I can approach things differently. And so in that, what are some of the ways that you approach things differently? Because there's biological things, like I haven't tried it yet, you guys, but I just read an article that said that if you have anxiety, if you cover your left eye and look up, biologically, it calms you down. left eye, look up. I don't know for how long. I don't know if it's like you have to be there for 3 days and that's why
Yeah.
you calm down or it's
Well, there's
whatever.
so no, this
But
is
like, so
good.
what do you do? It's like, what do you do to sort of, when you're feeling that, either adjust, warn people, make different choices on how you run your day, or like, what do you do to set yourself up for success?
I think and I think each of these tools, it aside from the cover your left eye and look up, which sounds like you can implement pretty quickly without too much effort. Some of these things like just pause, the power of the pause and take a breath before responding. Our impulsivity is so quick, it's hard to find that pause. It's hard to be able to do that pause. It's almost painful to pause. But that is one thing, the power of the pause, taking a breath and then getting your mind straight. There's also like uh mindset, like be curious about what you're thinking. Like, why is this okay? This situation is kind of irritating me. Why? And just get curious with yourself as far as why, um, waiting in line at the grocery store, or, the things that I guess people would typically say are kind of irritating, but why is it irritating that, listen, why is it irritating me that the dog is watching me put this together and I'm feeling pressure? Like, why am I feeling pressure? Because the dog is watching me. Like, that's how deep it goes. Like, don't watch me put this together because I don't.
I think you and your dog should go to a session together. I think you two
Right.
need
Some
to
couples
see
therapy.
somebody.
So asking why, just getting curious about your responses, and then trying to shift mindset on that. And it's almost kind of like having some agency on how you're letting things affect you. There is a choice. You do have a choice. Things aren't necessarily always happening to you. Like what you said, Jason, earlier, like sometimes we're bringing stuff on to ourselves. A lot of that is just maybe a mindset going into a situation. It's like, how can we reframe something to help us navigate something in a more peaceful way?
Usually,
have
and I think I've mentioned this before. Sorry, Krista.
no go ahead.
And it's so easy for me to say to other people when I see how frustrated they get and they think that the world's ending and I'm a failure, yada yada. I say, you know what? It won't mean a thing in 100 years.
Yeah.
It won't mean a thing in 100 years. And I wish I could say that to myself more often. And I do sometimes. I think to myself, look, I broke a glass. It's not the end of the world. Everyone's safe. Everyone's fine. But I broke a glass. There were times where that could, in the situation could have thrown me for a loop. But it's not easy. And I haven't found the right solution for me. I mean, I can tell myself, but I've got to be in the right frame of mind. And it doesn't happen that often. Like Michael was saying, I go from 0 to 60 in a quarter of a second. Like, I don't even have the
It's like the cup
capability.
runneth over, right? It's sort of like that
Yeah.
dysregulation starts, and it's almost like it just goes. This is how it feels like to me sometimes, that I can feel it, but it feels manageable. Everything's good. Like, we got this. We're gonna breathe. We're gonna do the things. And then all of a sudden something happens, and it's almost like that adrenaline or whatever it is just sort of falls over the edge of the cup. And then I don't know how to get it back in that moment.
The unfortunate thing is I don't feel it welling up. Something happens and that's it for me. Like, immediately. I mean, it's got to be pretty epic, but
So I
go from 0 to 60 and then it takes me a while to
come down,
breathe and to calm down and then I look at myself like, man.
And then there's
why do
shame,
you
because
go
this is
there?
what Greg
You
does.
embarrass yourself. You
This
yell.
is what Greg does.
It looks like you've totally lost control.
That's what Greg does.
And I'm
all the
having to
time.
talk to myself like, where did you go? How did that happen? And then the adrenaline is just, and then, I mean, not too long after that, I'm like dead. And I'm ashamed.
Exhausted.
And I'm like, I can't believe I went there that quickly. And I have no tools or ability to stop my sort of inabilities. I have what's my tool? you know,
But see, I think a lot of that, this is my perception because of being married to someone who's very similar, is that I think so much of that comes from his desire to people please.
of
Because
course.
because when I start to feel it, I do have the ability at some point to look and say, you can't talk to me, you can't touch me right now. You have got to leave me alone. And 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 I might feel some amount of shame for the fact that I had to say that, but honestly, I often feel much more anger that people won't just fucking leave me alone. But I do think that there is like, he really feels the need to people please more than I do. So that when those things happen, it does take, I think it's like a long fuse and a big kaboom because he's so afraid to say something over on this side of things. And, or he doesn't feel like he needs to because he's doing the treading of the water of the people pleasing. And I mean, one of the things that we've started to do in the house, in fact, my oldest just said it to me yesterday, is he said, I really need 5 minutes with zero input.
It's amazing. That's
And
boundary setting. It's amazing.
totally. And it's like done. And it was so clear because, I think as parents too, we're always like, what's up, buddy? Are you okay? How was school? What was wrong? What happened? How can I help? You're doing all that. And then when they can just look at you and say, I need 5 to 10 minutes of zero input. That was like, cool. See you in 5 or 10. Let me know if I can do anything. And I have started to say that type of stuff too. But when I'm driving, which is where I often get angry in Denver, I've found, as dumb as it sounds, because this is going to sound dumb, that when I call everybody friend, it makes me less angry.
Yeah,
So,
true.
hey, if I go, hey, friend, did you need to come over last minute? Okay.
Oh, you mean
Like,
when you're in the car? I
yes,
see.
when I'm in the car. Oh, okay,
Friend
that
is
could
not a
work.
word I use
So
sometimes.
Krista, yeah, we've
It's made
talked
me less
about
angry.
we've talked about this mental jujitsu,
Yeah.
how to flip things, and I think it is amazing how effective using friend instead of idiot can change your energy.
Totally.
It's
I agree.
really
You know, yeah, you're right. You're right. I say bud a lot. There you go, bud. You want to
Yeah.
get in? Go ahead. You know
Yep,
what?
that's
I'll
right.
see you at the
Hey,
next
friend.
light. We'll be next to each other. Please, here, let me give you. Oh, you didn't wave at me? You didn't give the courtesy wave? No problem, bud. No problem at all.
See? Yes,
That's
you do the
okay.
same
And so
thing.
I wave
I just say
back like, hey,
friend.
bud, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Hey, friend.
Okay. See you
You're
soon at the
welcome,
next
friend.
light.
Have a great day.
You know what?
Yeah.
And then I got the
Another
bird underneath the steering wheel. I'm flipping the bird because that also makes me feel good. Like, you mother.
um another this is kind of a funny thing to follow that up with, but the gratitude, like having some sort of gratitude practice, it sounds, like Al Franken or, what's his name? Stuart
Oh,
Smalley.
Stuart Smalley.
It's
Yeah.
more like positive affirmations, I
That's the
guess.
Gen X reference of the day.
Yay.
Nice. Good
Ding
one.
ding. But I guess that's more positive affirmation. The gratitude thing actually has been effective for me because it actually gets me into a perspective or a frame of mind, like before even coming out and facing, the breakfast or picking up the kids, or it's like, being like focusing on what you're grateful for kind of puts you in a state of being and a perspective to where some things don't affect you as much because you are more what matters to you. You've established what matters to you, so these things aren't going to matter as much. Whereas if I don't have that, then I'm more susceptible to these things coming at me and reacting to them. Rather than like being a little bit more focused with a mindset
But I
of
also think there's a lot more research coming out now too about just the truth around supporting sort of our bio needs, which is, like we had a couple weeks of very high stress and dysregulation in amongst the kids, both of them. And what I really did was I was like, I cannot fix all these problems right now, but what I can do is to try to make sure that we're sleeping, we're eating a lot of protein, and we're all taking walks. And then, because I think having that realization, 5 more minutes, that that if we can, as neurodivergent, support our brain to sort of calm down, even if it's through those bio needs, I think I also these were big things that were happening. They were not things that were going to be solved in 15 minutes. They were things that were going to take days or longer. And so, and kids who were just anxious, anxious, anxious. And I was like, all we're going to do is back up. We're going, and it meant bringing kids, teenage kids, to be really honest, older kids, into our bed and like watching movies, hanging out, having, just slowing everything down, taking walks, making sure our dinner was, there's a lot of new research coming out about ADHD brains and the real need for lots of extra protein and what that looks like. And so I do think there's something to be said for, and just sort of going like, I feel like I am dysregulated in life. Like I haven't been sleeping well lately. Well, if I am not going to sleep well, then I'm going to make sure my meals are high in protein, and then I'm walking, and then I'm meditating, taking some deep breaths. Like where can you counterbalance to make sure that your body is,
I want to add to this protein thing, Krista. I mean, those are fantastic tools, all of those things. The protein is real. And if you're like me and you're like, you forget, it's 1:30 and you for 2 o'clock, you've forgotten to eat lunch, and you're realizing why you're kind of like in a certain kind of
buzzing. You're
fuzzy,
physically buzzing. Yeah.
type of state, is because you don't have the proper, so get some good quality. It's expensive, but get some good quality protein powder, because when that happens to me, it's like I don't have time to grill up a chicken breast, or don't have time to like make this meal. I'm in this kind of hangry mode now to quickly make up a smoothie with protein powder. Bam. The shift that happens in my body after I do that it's so noticeable. And
hot tip, at Costco, they have, if you like buffalo wing sauce, they have chips that are actually chicken. They're like dehydrated chicken, and they're buffalo sauce. They are expensive. But for Greg and I, because we don't always go to like a protein shake or something like that when we get hangry, we tend to go towards like a junk food item. So I always keep those because it's chicken. It's just so even though I feel like it's a chip and I can get it into myself quickly, it is all protein.
That's
and
brilliant.
it is amazing. And I actually like it with a little
Well, if
dollop
you've
of
ever had a
cottage
Think
cheese.
bar,
So
the Think
Yep.
bars, the Think bars are 20% or 20 grams of protein, no sugar, zero sugar.
that's awesome.
And so I take those, and it also curbs the sweet tooth, right? Because they
I'm
taste
not a sweet
great.
tooth.
But
Yeah.
it's no sugar. It's
awesome.
it's 20, and some of them, like the peanut butter, right? It's always a little different than what you'd think. But once, I don't want to say get used to it, because it's a little bit of an acquired taste, but the Think bar, the chocolate peanut butter, or the crunchy peanut butter, or the chocolate, and I look for ones that are no sugar.
The benefits to it is, you can get over
And that, you're right, Michael,
that
that one thing.
protein,
I mean,
yeah.
we know that, don't we? Like, we know that you should
But
be, good.
Greg always has like those beef sticks on hand for him because he knows like, but I mean, I do think, and if you're a vegetarian, I'm sure there are other things that you can do, but
Slim Jim.
yeah, it's the old Slim Jim. But I do think that really understanding some of those bio needs and keeping on top of it, if you can, throughout the day, really helps you in that regulation space.
being in tune with the body, how you're feeling, hydration, protein. Absolutely.
That's right.
There's one thing.
All right. I think it's time to wrap it up.
That is our episode on dysregulation. We hope you gained a few tips and tools to incorporate into your neurospicy life. For Krista, Jason, I'm Michael. Hopefully Sarah will join us next time. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and share and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. If you'd like more info on the hosts, guests, and topics, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.